Giro bid farewell to Belfast with a thrilling sprint finish in front of the City Hall. Thousands watched Marcel Kittel storm to victory in Stage 2. The German powerhouse has now won stages in all 3 Grand Tours. Over the border and into Dublin this afternoon. We're here with all the live action on BBC 2 Northern Ireland. Well, it's been a bit showery here in Dublin today. We're right on the edge of the course. I'm joined by Michael Hutchinson again. And as I'm saying, we're right on the edge of the course. We're about 100 metres from the finish line, just beside the Dal building here in Dublin. We couldn't ask for a better spot, really. It's the best seat in Dublin. The sprint is going to unwind sort of right behind us here. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. They have given us a bit of shelter. We've got a bit of a roof, but no walls. So if it actually starts raining, we might have to grab the brollies. But we've had some pretty heavy downpours already here today, which I'm sure the sprinters will not want to be facing when they ride into Dublin. Well, no, there's quite a kink in the course. There's a chicane at about 350 metres to go with a surveil left, right, and actually it's a lot worse. Might come into that very, very fast, which could be quite interesting. Marcel Kittel will be very interested indeed. Celebrating his 26th birthday today. Can he celebrate with another stage win in this year's Giro d'Italia? This is the route that the riders are taking today. 187 kilometres from Armagh to Dublin, a little bit shorter than yesterday, who came to watch this race. And there is Mike Matthews wearing the MAGLIA ROSA, the leader's jersey, Orica Green Edge, with such a great performance in the team time. The young 23-year-old took it yesterday. So this was very much a procession through the streets of Armagh, letting everybody get a good look at the riders. And they came out onto the roads, and that is the start of the stage race proper today. And a quick burst, just 1 or 2 riders keen to stretch their legs. Just get a feel for it. You can see all the riders there. Really. I've absolutely loved the route. I thought that the route yesterday up around the Antrim coast, we saw sort of the rocky headlands and the kind of the foreshore and the breakers over that iconic drive and that iconic road. And then today we're seeing something much more rural, the kind of the softer, the rounder hills. We're sort of seeing all the sides of the scenery that Ireland and Northern Ireland has. It's been a really good route, and I think it showcased Northern Ireland beautifully. Well, we'll see them here in Dublin in, well, probably around about 4 o'clock, just after, depending on how fast they attack these roads. We'll join the live racing very shortly. Let's just bring you up to date with some of the earlier events out. This was Fork Hill. This was the riders basically approaching the border, heading out of Northern Ireland into the Republic of Ireland. Again, I've just been blown away by the crowds, Michael, who've come out the last day after day. Never mind the weather, but beautiful sunshine there today at that stage anyway. It's just this wonderful sort of river of pink that the riders are riding along on. The roads everywhere have been lined 2, 3 deep. I mean, the Giro doesn't get a reception like this in its own country. Yeah, plenty of incident as well. We saw quite a lot of incident yesterday, the odd crash or two, and certainly remember, of course, Dan Martin going down very heavily on the opening day. This was Fork Hill again, and this was actually Andre Fedi of the Neri Sitoli team. You may remember seeing him in the breakaway yesterday for a long time in that yellow up the road. Happy for quite a long time. I'm not surprised. But yeah, that was the sprint at Dundalk. So the weather seems to have deteriorated a little bit. While the sun has come out here in Dublin, certainly it looks as though the weather's not 100% out on the road at the moment. They have 73.
That were being talked up by Michael Matthews were 5 and 6. And I remember when he said it, I thought, into Monte Cassino.
Hard to drop the sprinters up the climbs. In fact, the only one that they did drop was Marcel Kittel, whose team did a great job trying to get him back on, but unfortunately didn't succeed in the end. There was a crash coming towards the last finishing straight, and Mark
we were saying yesterday it's the only thing that's missing. Yes, he is a desperately near perfect example of, I'm sure, what every man would like to look like and what every woman would like a man to look like as well. He is a beast of a bloke. He's also very, very nice, actually, and speaks impeccable English, which always helps. 69.7 kilometres to go, 3 minutes and 51. The pace has picked up a little bit. This is not an attempt, incidentally, to hamper Rigoberto Urán. He had an issue and he's just been brought back by...
You seemed a bit insulted, Carls, and I will have a shave tomorrow morning.
Can do with one myself. BBC 2 Northern Ireland, a very warm welcome to all of you watching in. Maddie Hume has found us and says, wow, yeah, we're here. Tell your mates. A little bit of a tap, deciding not to do it because they want the vision of just have to blink. They start asking you questions. We had about a 5-minute conversation today about the model of car we're driving.
Yeah, we did when we're trying to find a parking spot here near the finish line. Omega Pharma Quick-Step, the Belgian team, the latest to come down slightly. Getting a little bit too excited there at the front. They're up there protecting the interests of Rigoberto Urán, 2nd overall here last year, with massive ambitions to equal or better that in this year's race.
And there they are, the good old golden arches towards the left. Looks like the cameraman's quite hungry. Pulls a wide view just so he can... Maybe he's after a freebie, not quite sure. Just look at these people. You are all magnificent. Islands, north and south. We salute you.
Aidan van Niekerk informing me that contract negotiations for riders are officially allowed to begin on the July the 1st, which I guess makes sense because, of course, the who's who of cycling will descend on France, or at least in Yorkshire this year, at the start of the Tour de France, which takes place throughout July.
It's like a rock star welcome, and the riders certainly love it. Michael Matthews yesterday, he got on the podium and
here as well. It was very well received on both occasions. Denmark, where I did my first commentary for the race with you a couple of years ago, was exactly...
No, just a bit lower, thanks, yeah. Quite an assistance. Yeah, so no restriction on holding on to the medical car, but I guess if you get found out, you'll be in trouble. Drogheda, or Drode, what do you reckon?
I'll keep stum.
No, that sounds ridiculous. Especially in your job.
No, that's completely wrong.
Small industrial town, apparently. The Boyne River. Wasn't there a battle around here some time ago? Less said about that, possibly the better. Depending on your company, of course. 65.5 kilometres to go, 3 minutes and 44. And don't hamper him too much. Sure he knows. That was Nico Bohem, incidentally, by Bardiani. A team that really, it's like a soundworm that's got into our head. Every time we say Bardiani, we start thinking Barmy Army, which is what... It's a chant for English cricket fans. Not that you folks, good folks of Northern Ireland would know, and Southern Ireland, I beg your pardon, would know much about that. But yeah, actually, cricket is played. There is a cricket team in in Trinity College, the university here. I'm going to have to look this up. Looks like just a tower. Is that a memorial or is it just the remnant? Not quite sure. I don't know. 64.8 to go, and it's a shame actually that we have been dogged by rain today, because there's some beautiful scenes as we cross the borders, the border I should say, between north and south. Got ourselves a little bit lost yesterday. To drive on, there we are. It went very quiet in the car when he thought he might run out, but
it did, didn't it? I didn't say I was to go before 0 went down to around 25.
Yeah, and then he was thinking to himself, I'm going to get all kinds of trouble here because I didn't fill up at the spa. That looks like a Napoleonic defensive installation. I'll find out for you in just a few moments' time. I've just dropped my notes. Yes, hard to attack something like that by running up the mount, but in fact, if you were to tunnel in, set up the wooden stanchions, and then burn them down, the whole place. Have you running out of fuel? You've run out of conversation.
Luca Paolini from Katusha on the front of the bunch in his aerodynamic helmet. Stage winner last year in the race on the 3rd stage, I believe it was, going into the pink jersey, which he held on for some time, protecting his leader, Joaquim Rodriguez.
I think Cadell Evans, who seems to have been around forever.
Yeah, nice to see that he's on the wheel of Brent Bookwalter, who suffered a crash on the morning of the opening team time trial up in Belfast.
He was all tetchy in those days as well, which is great. He's got a real personality, all of his own, Cadell Evans. Some people like it, some people are mystified by it, and other people...
Yeah, who was it I saw the other day said exactly the same thing? I think it was Sam Bennett, the Irish rider, who's rode for Anne Post last year and is now professional with the NetApp Enduro team, who unfortunately aren't here. It would have been great for Sam to have a chance. He's a sprinter as well, and could have been up there in the top 10 or even better on these first 2 stages.
Nobody attempting to do a bunny hop straight over the roundabout, which does happen on occasion. You probably get bogged down on a day like today. But Drogheda, there. hope that's cheered you up. I'm just wiping the screen now. 40.5 kilometres to go until the end. We've just got 60 kilometres left, which tells you what, we've got about an hour and a half. Something along those lines. 3 minutes and 33, we said that would be the gap, and it is holding absolutely steady. A joy, but likewise to hear from you over in Canada, the North Americas, down even India, the Asian Pacific Rim, and if you're watching the highlights, Australia, and indeed beyond. Can you get beyond Australia? Are we in the Antarctic? Who knows? He's their chosen sprinter today, but at least he's got plenty of teammates around him. The problem is they've also taken a tumble, so it's a big bike change. It takes time. The more numerous you are within the team, they're sort of having a chat about it at the moment. Nobody's really knocking it back. Trek picked it up and decided to. In fact, is that Yusuf? Francis Dijer just heading off to go. He was actually telling those on the front, look, I'm not attacking. I'm just going to go and have myself a comfort break, so don't follow me. ROSA, who's just might suit him. It's never going to be his day today, but it's just not what you want, certainly this early in a Grand Tour, to pick up bumps and bruises.
I can see that there's a truce in the peloton at the moment. That time gap's likely to go up, and seeing a report as he goes down, more often than not, they'll sit up and just wait, as long as it's not too bad, until they get back on before resuming the chase. But well, if the breakaway didn't have too much chance before, then things will be going slightly better for them. Still likely to be caught before we come in here towards Dublin for the sprint finish, but again, that can make things even more nervous. Again, if they have to go too, really fast in the running to catch the breakaway riders, then people start getting on the limit, and that's again when
those up front, they're really sort of gently chugging along, all taking the opportunity to have a feed. You saw some of the gel bars going in as well, and this is moderately pleasant riding for some of these guys, not for those who are trying to get back on, especially as they now have got grit where it shouldn't be, and indeed feeling damp and dirty. Not nice. You saw some faces being cleaned off as well. Shame that Ferrari's caught out in this. Just how much do you think that
I'm not 100% sure it was Ferrari. I noticed Mori, who's the guy on the right there in the pink shorts, but
there's 5 of them there.
Was there? Yeah, so more good chance then.
Yeah, pretty good, or pretty bad. 56.3, 4 minutes and 5 now, and yeah, it really has knocked back. Nobody really has the will to punish those who've had trouble. Sky, incidentally, when they first came into the peloton, a lot of jealousy about because of the funding that they had behind them, and of course they turned up in their Jaguars, which also for some teams look like super luxury saloons.
There's no doubt about that, and they're kind of very much advertising how much better their buses were than everybody else's, and I think it got the backs up in the peloton for a number of teams who thought, we've been into cycling a long time, we think we know roughly what.
Named the Death Star by David Miller in a humorous moment. You're looking out the window, seeing this magnificent drive around, and all the teams have pretty smart-looking buses these days. However, in our efforts to bring you behind-the-scenes access to what goes on in a big stage race like this, Gavin Andrews, our reporter, has been able to have a sneak inside that famous Team Sky bus.
Well, the bikes are state-of-the-art.
The famous Death Star, of course. We remember the Orica Green Edge bus last year in the Tour de France getting stuck under the finish arch. A great view of that happened here today. Who will hold on to that?
He'll hold on to that now until Wednesday, because there's a rest day tomorrow. There are no climbs at all on the stage on Tuesday, so he's got that jersey for the next 3 days now.
He's one of the
and ready to race. And with just over 50 kilometres to go, today is going to be fireworks, albeit at the end. Francis Dijer doing a very good job out front, just plying their trade and doing it on behalf of Nasser Bouhanni. Do you have a pick today, this far out, Dan?
Oh, I mean, the pick is very, very obvious. I think perhaps we better leave it today, and if they do, I think he's got a great chance.
I'm looking for somebody who's got a bit of an on-off switch, and par excellence as far as that's concerned for me is Francesco Chicchi of Neri Sotoli. We're looking for outsiders, by the way. I picked one yesterday, which was Giacomo Nizzolo. He again could well be a veteran who did a good job of being part of that motor. But I think Chicchi, it's maybe somebody who's going to do it on their own. Chicchi can do that. So can Roberto Ferrari. He was all on his lonesome yesterday, don't forget, finished 5th. And I don't know, if it starts to get a bit nasty, people like Ferrari can take a fight. So can Nasser Bouhanni. So out of all that lot, Kiki, Ferrari and Buani, I reckon they've all got a great chance of being top 5. But I'm going to go for Buani, who is that kickboxer. I think he might be kicking and screaming today, but it might well be with triumph. Let's see.
Great crowd support yet again as they head through Balbriggan with just under 50 kilometres to go now. They're now heading right towards the coast. They'll get to Skerries soon, where they'll, I believe, just checking on my MAGLIA, and start turning inland, going sort of south-westward. So that'll be a change in direction for the course. As you can see, the wind hasn't had too much of an effect on the race so far. It's a westerly wind that they're dealing with today, but it's been reasonably protected the road. And majority of the time, to me, it seems like they've had a tailwind. The breakaway not fanning across the road, so that gives you an idea that they're not getting a wind from the side. But whether that will change over the coming kilometres, you can see the road slightly more open as they come out of this part, of course, towards the coast. And there'll be more and more nervous people back in the peloton, and perhaps more crashes. You never know.
Well, let's hope not. It can, well, feel rather pleasant. You see the polyfolds over the ground here. It's sort of polythene sheeting with, I believe, rice starch worked into it, so that once the frost has passed, it biodegrades and the plants grow through. So it offers up sort of micro, little tiny greenhouse effect, if you like, for the plant. So it gives it a little bit of protection. Then it rots away and the plant grows. Magnificent. Invented in Israel. Why I know that, I do not know. It's something from tomorrow's world, when I was very much in yesterday's world. Still there, some of you say. How unkind. Little bit of a warning, just flying out there, as you saw. The riders really do look after each other throughout little sections where there is road furniture. And it's great to see. It's a very collective spirit within the peloton. And riders feel that they not only look after themselves, but everyone else. They know that you don't really want anybody to fall, even if he's your worst enemy out there. It's got to go well.
Ivan Basso suffering a front wheel puncture, as you can see, teammates, I'm sure, and also behind the team car. It's not a bad time. Oh, what's wrong?
There are some principal riders who have an alternative. So if a day is going to start wet and then get dry, rather than just mess around, they'll have two bikes set up exactly the same and just take one. Although everyone seems to have their favourite, even if they are deemed to be exactly the same. It's a bit like a Friday car.
It's amazing.
Buy one of those.
Yeah, when you spend so long on a bike, how used you get to it. And, you know, mechanics and the professional teams have got some great means and instruments to make sure that bikes are in exactly the same position. But it's surprising, they can just feel just slightly different. So, like you said, Carlton, most riders will have their own favourite bike. Same kind of applies for shoes as well.
You saw there a perfect example of the compression that you get with a 90-degree corner. We saw them coming in about 8 wide into the corner with 350 metres to go.
Yeah, it certainly will do. But before that, even they've got that double left over the river, and then the right turn at 800 metres to go. It's a day where you're going to have to fight for a very good position with 2-3 Ks to go and try and hold it. And you know, then of doing anything in that last kilometre, or very little chance, particularly if you're outside the top 70, of course. Then it's kind of the end of the day if you're a sprinter. But you know, they'll all know that. They'll all have done their research, both on the Garibaldi, the information bible as we call it, that we get, which gives very detailed insights into the run-ins for each finish, including the ups and downs and the twists and turns. And of course, most teams these days will also use modern technology, Google Earth, to look at the streets and look at Team Sky. On the front of their bus, they'll have a preview for them on the projector, which they'll all go through before the key stages at least. And so most riders, even though they've never done the roads before, will have a good idea of what faces them towards the end of the day. And in particular, of course, the sprinters. And Mark Cavendish, always a rider who wants to be as well prepared as possible. He'll do a lot of research to know which side of the road he needs to be on. And some teams will even send somebody up the road to have a look at the course for them, because, you know, it doesn't matter how much research you do online, there's nothing quite like seeing it with your own eyes.
Indeed. Garibaldi, incidentally, was a very different north and south, but then I guess you could say that not only for Great Britain but for the island of Ireland as well. But yeah, differences are part of life, but yes, Garibaldi. In fact, you might actually see a bearded gentleman walking around who is the sort of mascot of the race. We call the guide the Garibaldi because, of course, it's the whole of Italy and he unified it. There is a chap walking around who pretends to be Garibaldi. His name's not Gary and he's not baldy, but he's got a silver beard, wears a red pillbox hat. If you see him, go and say buongiorno. Why don't you? I tried my best with the accent there. Did it work?
No, not really.
44.7 kilometres to go. He's at
Point of this race, or at least where things really start to speed up, get more nervous, and as you said, Carlton, it might not be that they're particularly warm at this point of time or that the conditions have got any better, but they will start to strip off. Team leaders might give.
It's rather silly though is to have a flapping rain cape, either do it up or take it off, because you know, we're talking about aero here. He's actually just wasting wattage.
Yeah, and it's something that Rob Hales, our colleague, absolutely hates to see. A former professional rider himself, a significant amount. Of course, you just can't really feel the difference between if you watch or just going along and doing what you can do. Who knows, when you can save 5, 10, 15 watts the whole way through a stage, 21 stages, that makes a big bit of difference. And we were talking earlier, somebody asking us about how much difference it makes to be on somebody's wheel. I think it's around about 30% to be behind one person, much more than that when you're in a big peloton. But as Rob also says, it's also not great to be right on the back. I can't remember the science behind it now. If you want to get in touch and tell me if you're much more knowledgeable than I am, then please do on Twitter, Daniel Lloyd 1 or Carlton Kirby. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but certainly in research on the team pursuit, which is...
It has an anchoring effect on the man at the back. As they come through, lots of checks, just to make sure that everyone's in a safe place. As Dan had taken himself a comfort break a few moments ago.
Not on the side of the road.
You say. I forgot what I was going to say now because a terrible picture has just come across my mind, so we'll just swiftly move on. The beaches here, terrific seafood incidentally in this part of the world, and in fact you'll never taste better salmon than round here. Our friends in Scotland will probably disagree, but believe me, amazing. Maybe it's just the cooking, not sure. Skerries is where we are, and looks like part of a river estuary. Very, very shallow, at least the rake of the beaches here. See a lot of beach boats as well. Coastal town, yeah. These information schedules not offering as much. It's on the coast, yeah, we can see that. 3 minutes and 3 into the woodland area. This is nasty, actually. This can get really skittery. There's, diesel seems to be the favourite fuel in this part of the world, and you get a lot of micro soot from a diesel exhaust, which finds itself on the road. And if it's not washed away, then it can cause all kinds of problems. Let's stay safe, everyone. Little sleeping policeman that hasn't been ground down, that they all skip over. They got warning of it. Whistles and pennants for the safety folk that bless us here. And once again, a big shout out for the marshals, who in Northern Ireland have done a fantastic job. They've got thousands of volunteers, and they've called them in and used them very wisely. Nasty little turn here. This is why they're all racing to the front.
Indeed, thousands of volunteers helping with this year's Giro d'Italia as they go through. Skerries, great crowds out on the roads, huge support for all the riders. It is very much a global sport, but no more so than for the local competitors in this year's Giro d'Italia. Philip Dignan, Dan Martin, of course, who sadly crashed out on the team time trial, and Nico Roach. Well, of course, that's the 3 known Irish riders, but in fact there is a 4th Irish-born rider. Nico Roach's Tinkoff Saxo teammate Chris Jensen was actually born in Ireland, though he now represents Denmark, and our Gavin caught up with his dad.
Knut, you've come all the way from Denmark.
And for the team, he was able to relax, and he's so delighted to be doing a Grand Tour, and especially doing a Grand Tour in Ireland. It's amazing. I mean, it's fantastic for him.
And in great company with Nicholas Roach.
Yes, his Irish teammate. They when they room together, they do argue about who's the most Irish. And I would have thought Chris would have been, a little bit at a disadvantage because Roach has at least one Irish parent. But Chris then counters by saying that he was born on the island of Ireland. And if that evens it out, then Chris sort of claims to deliver the killer punch by saying that he speaks English with an Irish accent, hinting that Roach maybe has a sort of bit of a French accent to his English. But that's just friendly races. He'll be the captain, and then maybe Nicholas will work for him,
And this day must be a very special day for you. A very proud dad, are you?
Very much so, yeah, because I mean, and we owe Ireland an enormous amount because, you know, having lived here for 16 years and having enjoyed every moment of it, I don't think Chris would be racing a bicycle if it hadn't been for Ireland, because the Wicklow Mountains, the many mountain bike races we did in the north, and the fact that he was part of the Irish team for the Youth Olympics back in 2005 as a very small and not particularly strong member of the Irish team, but he just sort of sneaked into it. That even in Denmark, where the competition is higher, you know, it is a higher level over on the continent, but he felt that with this Irish background, you know, and the ruggedness, you know, if you can go up the Wicklow Mountains with the wind in your face and the sort of Velcro-like tarmac under your wheels, you know, you can really hack it anywhere, you know. So Ireland has been so important for us, you know, and being back, it's quite emotional for him and for his mother and for me as well, of course. Enjoy the day.
It's been just around 40 Ks. It's going to get an awful lot
quicker and quicker on. As you can see, the problems that they're having with the barriers here at the finish, just the wind coming in from that side and pushing them over where they've got the sponsors' logos strapped to the side of them, and that's something they're going to have to make sure doesn't happen, of course, once the riders come in. I just wonder whether, in fact, when we saw those barriers earlier and the sponsors had kind of been taken off, whether that was due to them blowing over and not wanting it to happen again. But gives you an idea of just how windy it is here at the finish.
Very much so. They're going to have to take great care immediate climbs today. Last bottles and gels being handed out, and they're taking their time in making sure that they take them properly.
I think time to answer just a couple more questions before we get into the real back end of this race, where we'll have to concentrate on the action. Mark Moorhead asking what the top speed riders might get up to over the course of the 3 weeks. Well, if you're talking about a sprint day like today, then riders actually can get up towards 70 k's per hour in the right conditions. I don't think they'll be quite there today. It's a slightly uphill finish, a slight headwind finish, but it will still be close to 60, if not over. But on the mountains, well, it very much depends on the mountain descent. Of course, if it's technical with a lot of corners, then you can't reach a hugely high speed, or they'll still be up to 80. But I think I actually got my top speed ever on a bike in the first Giro d'Italia that I did up in very north of the country. In fact, I think we might have also actually gone across the border to Austria, but very, very straight, wide road, and I got 126 k's per hour. I'm not sure exactly what that is. There's a certain speed, through about 100 k's an hour, where you just start to think, hope the mechanic did the bolts up properly.
Exactly. Crimicar Lane in Sheffield was my fastest ever descent. When I hit the brakes on my Carlton Corsa, why do you think I bought that bike? The brake sun has joined us yet again at the end of the day. This is stage 3 of the Giro d'Italia. We're finishing in Dublin, and just look at the wind, Dan. It's going to be massive.
Yeah, it's the first point at which I've really seen winds playing a part. You can see the flags in the background there. They're blowing across the road from the left-hand side of the screen as we look at it, which is why we're seeing the riders in this breakaway just fanning across the road. Rubiano, the Colombian champion from the Colombia team, on the front, and just behind and to the left of him, Gert Dox from Lotto Belisol, just trying to get protection.
0.5 kilometres to go, and they're on a bit of a hurry up here. They've had a couple of crashes which they have waited for riders rather kindly. So many riders from across teams, so nobody attacked. However, what that's done is it's allowed 15, 18 to go. They're going to start to believe they're on dry roads, back on wet.
Just about to point that out, Carlton. Yet again, as we saw earlier in the stage, very differing weather conditions between the breakaway, who seem to have had the best of it throughout today, compared to the peloton, where the rain's really coming down hard. I mean, there must only be 2 kilometres between the two of them, but it's amazing a difference that 2 kilometres is making.
Look at that, and how narrow is that? There's only going to be 3 riders comfortably exiting that, and there'll be 6 into it, into Lusk. Just wait and see Cadell Evans' BMC boys up the front, because that's what he calls for. They also, some of the team cars have TV, and they're probably listening to exactly what we're saying right now, which is when we say something that's slightly disrespectful, you know, teasing, you understand, then yes, it sometimes comes back to us if we're sharing a hotel with various teams. Mixed surface as well. We've had a few repairs. In fact, saw some rolling repairs in Dublin today that had not or been forgotten in the build-up, so they had to be done. And this is a high-paced day. That's Moreno Moser, and just playing with the cars, using the best aero, and he'll take the motorcyclists, he'll take other riders.
In fact, an impossibility sometimes to get back to the peloton in front of you if you're not allowed to use the slipstreaming effect